It's a Lebanese short film. We can put it on screen. It's not Palestinians faking their own injuries. Can we own up to that mistake and take that down? Is that not propaganda?
Once again, I understand that was also a mistake.
A mistake? Come on, brother. You know how many people told him he was wrong over and over again? Why is the tweet still up?
Joining me now, Mark Regev, senior advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He was previously Israel's ambassador to the United Kingdom. Mark Regev, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Let's start with the tragic situation. Pleasure to have you on. Let's start with the tragic situation of the hostages.
We're going to look at that in a second. Oh, a chatter found out where this guy was coming from. I'm an immigrant in the Western country, and I, too, am against mass immigration to my country. Does that make me a Nazi? Are you saying all Christians in the USA are racist? Not just Azov, Tornado, Kraken, until right sector, Sonningrad brigades. Same here in Finland. All Christians in the USA. I remember this conversation. This is probably his misunderstanding of what I was responding to. Anyway, let's continue. Let's watch what Mehdi Hassan did here against Mark Regev, the Israeli advisor.
Hostage taking, a clear war crime by Hamas, and those hostages, of course, need to be released. Are we any closer to the release of any more hostages?
We surely hope so. You know, Hamas, as you've reported, has kidnapped some 240 people. Unfortunately, today we found the body near the Shifa hospital of one of the hostages, a woman from Kibbutz Be'eri. Her name is Yehudit Weiss. She was 65 years old, a mother of 5. And so she's no longer a hostage. She was dead. The information we have is when she was taken into captivity, when she was abducted by Hamas, she was alive.
How'd she die, Mark?
We've now found her body.
Who killed her, Mark?
It was one of the results of the military operation today. Of course, getting the hostages out remains one of the focal points of our military operation. And we believe that by expediting the military pressure on Hamas, we're actually getting closer to the release of hostages.
So was it a mistake in hindsight, and that's tragic news to hear about this poor woman, was it a mistake for Prime Minister Netanyahu, your boss, to have reportedly turned down a deal at the start of this conflict that would have seen Hamas free women, the elderly, kids, in exchange for a 5-day ceasefire? Isn't that why so many of the families of the hostages are angry with your government?
Sorry, Mehdi, that's just disinformation. There was not a real option for a deal before the ground operation. It was looked at seriously, but Hamas put nothing on the table that could be worked with. And so that's just not correct to say there was an option. We might have an option now for a deal. I can't.
That's crazy. I don't, wait, is that really the case? Because that's not what I've seen. I don't know. This is the full 15-minute video, my friend. We're watching it right now. Not what I've heard.
I'll tell you for sure. We might have an option because the military pressure on Hamas is maybe making Hamas understand that if they want a temporary ceasefire, they need to release hostages. Without that, we're not going to have a temporary ceasefire. So we're hitting Hamas hard, and maybe the military pressure will force them to consider how they look at
hitting Hamas hard. Totally.
The hostages. Look, we can't expect them to release hostages because they're suddenly going to become humanitarians, right, Mehdi? They're obviously not. They're brutal, vicious terrorists, and they'll only release hostages when they're release hostages when they're forced to do so.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the military pressure.
It's crazy that he's saying that they release hostages when they're forced to do so, but since day one, there has been negotiations, and time again, the IDF, or at least Netanyahu's camp, has stopped the negotiations process dead in its fucking tracks. Okay, this is reporting coming from Israeli sources, mind you. Okay, thank you, Rob Rousseau, for the raid. Hope you had a good stream. Hamas, I'm fucking saying it wrong too. Hamas has also released hostages, multiple hostages thus far, even before the boots on the ground military operation into Gaza, and has routinely tried to push for a ceasefire, like a daily ceasefire or a multiple day long ceasefire, as they tried to drip feed the hostage release process, to which Netanyahu and even our own State Department said, no, they're simply using the hostages to try and stop the bombing campaign. They literally said they do not want to stop the bombing campaign, even if it means releasing hostages 1 day at a time. And in that time frame, in that time frame, 63 hostages, according to the Israeli, or not Israeli government, sorry, according to Hamas communications, 63 hostages have died to Israeli rocket fire. Now, you might say, Hasan, how do we know these guys didn't just kill the hostages themselves? And to which I repeat, why the fuck would they take hostages, which is an incredibly difficult process, a military operation that was designed and trained for years and years, just to go and fucking execute them inside of a tunnel structure? Now, I'm not discounting the fact that Hamas may kill hostages. The difference, of course, is that if they were to kill hostages, they would do it to show that they're serious. That they would do it on camera. They wouldn't just quietly kill a hostage. So if there is no camera footage of a Hamas militant executing a hostage, and these hostages have died, I'm going to go ahead and assume that they've died to the much likelier cause of death in Gaza right now. Not stepping on a fucking Lego, not heart disease, Israeli rockets.
We are nearly 6 weeks into this bombing campaign and ground invasion. The Gaza Health Ministry says Israel has killed more than 11,000 people in Gaza, including a record number of children.
Controlled.
Let me finish my question.
No, but you can't say that. No, but you said you have to say the Hamas controlled Ministry of Health in Gaza.
I don't have to say what you asked me to say.
Oh yeah, dude. No, it don't work that way. It don't work that way, buddy. Look at him. He's so fucking arrogant. He's so used to just like. He's so used to Western media just like repeating uncritically whatever the fuck he says. So he goes, no, you have to say Hamas controlled. Shut the fuck up. Fuck you mean I have to say Hamas controlled? Get the fuck out of here. Who the fuck are you? Who are you? Why do you think you have this say on this person's like media coverage? Like, well, what do you mean? I'm telling you, it literally stems from arrogance. It's like American media operating in this way as uncritical stenographers for as long as they have. And that is the reason why there's this expectation. It's like, what the fuck do you mean? Hamas are on Gaza Health Ministry.
More than 4,000 kids,
true.
they say.
That's true. You don't deny that? Mehdi, you don't deny that it's the Hamas controlled?
I'm not
denying
that.
The health ministry is controlled by Hamas.
Let me finish my question.
You can, but please tell the viewers the truth. That information is provided by Hamas.
Okay, and that information, we'll come back to that information, but you've got dead Gazans. The American government say maybe more than 11,000. You've got a record number of journalists killed, according to the CPJ, a record number of UN workers killed, according to the UN, and yet Hamas still exists, is still capable of firing rockets into Israel, still has the hostages. You haven't found their big base under the Shifa hospital either. Your critics say that shows this war is a failure.
I would argue that's all incorrect, Mehdi. We're hitting Hamas hard and they're feeling the pain. We just discussed that a moment ago. Why they may be now considering seriously a hostage release. It's not because, as I said.
Didn't Israel literally brag about killing more Palestinians than even the Gaza Health Ministry predicted? Ynet came out and said 20,000 Hamas militants have been killed so far. I don't know why they said that. I don't know where that fucking came from, but they did say it.
Said they've become humanitarian.
A couple weeks ago.
It's because they're under very, very massive military pressure. Look, this operation is not one that we wanted, obviously. This war was forced upon Israel in the terrible attack of October 7th, and we are fighting back, and we will destroy Hamas. We'll dismantle their military machine, and we'll take apart their political control of Gaza. That's good for Israel for obvious reasons. We don't have to live in fear of terrorists crossing the border and killing our people and butchering our children in the middle of the night. But it's ultimately also good, and I hope you agree with me, it'll be good for the people of Gaza who deserve better than this terrible...
Dude, what a psychotic thing to say. Yeah, dude. 2 atomic bombs worth of fucking missiles we've dropped on Gaza, completely crippling the entire fucking area, and also shutting off their food, water, medicine, life-saving measures that they need to heal themselves when they do inevitably escape, if they're lucky enough, one of our bombing campaigns. That actually is good for them. Like, do you hear yourself? You are a psycho. You are a bloodthirsty monster for making this statement.
Authoritarian, extreme Hamas regime.
The people of Gaza who are still alive, as I say, more than 11,000 people dead, reported dead, 4,000 children. I just want to pull up on the screen.
Hamas's numbers.
You say Hamas's numbers. I should point out, just pull up on the screen. In the last 2 major Gaza conflicts, 2009 and 2014, the Israeli military's death tolls matched Hamas's health ministry death toll. So, and the UN human rights groups all agree that those numbers are credible. But look, your wider point is true.
Yeah, ridiculous, dude. Ridiculous. Yeah, go ahead. Yell about, lie, and fucking be like, Hamas death tolls. Hamas death tolls. It's like, shut the fuck up. This is the new line, okay? It's so stupid. It is a demonstration that the propaganda machine is failing. Everyone and anyone is against us. The UN is Hamas. World Health Organization, Hamas. Everyone is Hamas. Just deny. Get the fuck out of here, man. Be serious. Be for fucking real.
Can I challenge that? Will you allow me to challenge that, please? Can I just challenge that? I'd like to challenge that. I'll try to be as brief as you are, sir. Those numbers are provided by Hamas. There's no independent verification. And secondly, more importantly, you have no idea how many of them are Hamas terrorists.
Also, that's not even true. There has been cross-verification in the past. So the idea that like every single institution, every single organ, every single NGO uses the Hamas-run Gazan Health Ministry numbers as they are the most correct, especially when the Gazan Health Ministry has revealed the identities of all of those who were murdered, that you can cross-reference with the Israeli access, because Israel has the population registry. The idea that this level of transparency already exists and you're still going, well, it's Hamas that's lying, is ridiculous.
Combatants and how many are civilians. Hamas would have you believe that they're all civilians, that they're all children. And here we have to say something that isn't said enough. Hamas, until now, we're destroying their military machine, and with that, we're eroding their control. But up until now, they've been in control of the Gaza Strip. And as a result, they control all the images coming out of Gaza. Have you seen one picture of a single dead Hamas terrorist in the fighting in Gaza? Not one. Is that by accident, or is that because Hamas...
Wait, what? Wait. First of all, great question, actually. No, that's an awesome question. No, exactly. Whose responsibility is that, dumb fuck? Yeah, no shit. No shit. Take your own photo then, asshole. Why is it that when, like, the Al-Qassam brigades are dropping fucking videos on Telegram channels, right? When it's literally Hamas militants running up the fucking tanks with the little red dot on top of them, the little red triangle on top of them, making, like, fast-paced, Final Cut fucking 7 videos in the heat of the battle, they directly show you that here's a militant, here's a tank, they blew it up, okay? But when Israel tries to do that same fucking thing, okay? When Israel tries to do that same thing, they tried to do it, by the way, they show 0 Hamas militants. Not a single one. How? I'm sure you've seen the IDF. I'm sure you've seen the IDF version of this. Every IDF video that comes out is literally just them murking a fucking block in the city. That's it. They're just like blowing up. They're either torturing Palestinian men, okay, and like flexing on them. And that's not even in Gaza, by the way. That's in the fucking West Bank. And then they never show dead Palestinian fighters. Why is it? They did. They blew up a retreating Hamas car. No, that's not true. No, that wasn't a retreating Hamas car. That was a fucking an elderly man driving the car, and his wife actually survived. They tank shelled a civilian car. They fucking blew up they blew up with a tank, a civilian car that was literally on an evacuation route that was declared safe. Oh, that's why you put it in air quotes. Got it.
Hamas can control the information.
You asked me a question and you
Gaza.
said you would be brief. I haven't, you're right, but I have seen lots of children with my own lying eyes being pulled from the rubble.
Because they're the pictures Hamas wants you to see. Exactly my point,
they're dead,
They're
Mark.
the pictures
also
Hamas wants.
But they're also people that your government has killed. You accept that, right? You've killed children, or do you deny that?
No, I do not. I do not. First of all, you don't know how those people died, those children.
Oh, wow.
First of all, we don't want to see a single child.
Yeah, dude, Hamas is actually executing them personally. Hamas is actually killing the children so that, you know, they can... It's so funny. It's like Hamas is either personally executing the fucking kids to make Israel look bad, or no kids have died at all, actually, and you can't trust the Palestinian Health Ministry's numbers. The Gazan Health Ministry's numbers are unreliable and inconsistent, so actually no children have been killed at all. Or if children have been killed, they probably were killed by Hamas. At a certain point, you gotta be like, dog, I guess I'm talking to an insane person. Why am I taking you seriously? It's like a fucking abusive boyfriend.
Child killed.
Okay, here's my question for you, Mark. You say, I agree with you. I agree with you. We shouldn't blindly believe anything Hamas says. But why should we believe what your government says either? Your military spokesman on Monday pointed to an Arabic document in the basement of a Gaza hospital and claimed it was a Guardian list on which every terrorist writes his name. But that was false. It was just a calendar with the days of the week on it. Your colleague in the Prime Minister's office, Ophir Gendelman, posted behind-the-scenes footage from a Lebanese short film and claimed it was Palestinians in Gaza faking their own injuries. That tweet is still up a week later. That is endless disinformation from your government, is it not?
I disagree, and I think on the important issues.
Oh, dude, you disagree? That's endless disinformation? So what is it then? What's the purpose? What purpose does that serve, honestly? I disagree.
Look, I'll give you an example, Mehdi. Originally, we estimated.
No,
I'm answering your question. Allow me to answer your question. I'm answering your question directly, if you'll allow me. We originally said in the atrocious Hamas attack on our people on October 7th, we had the number at 1,400 casualties. And now we've revised that down to 1,200 because we understood that we had overestimated. We made a mistake. There were actually bodies that were so badly burnt, we thought they were ours. In the end, apparently, they were Hamas terrorists. When we make a mistake, we admit it.
Short on time.
Why does that give you permission? Why does that give you permission to accept Hamas?
That's crazy, by the way. They went on. How did they burn? And also, they went along with that, like showing burned bodies and being like, "Oh, these are the guys. These are, they did that for weeks." And then they turned around and said, "Okay, never mind. Those were actually, Hamas militants." Okay, got it. Cool. Glad that they admitted that. That's fine. Still, majority civilian casualties. No questions there. Acts of terror against civilian populations. No questions there. The problem here is that we're just moving along the entire way and going, well, at least they said that was wrong. But what about all the other fucking instances where you're wrong and you just delete it? You just delete the tweet, or you're wrong and then you're wrong again. You're wrong again. You're wrong again. You're wrong again. After the 15th time in one fucking week, someone's got to go, all right, man, what the fuck's going on? What's happening here?
Hamas's numbers. I don't understand.
I didn't ask about Hamas numbers. I said to you that your military
spokesman... But you were quoting to me before Hamas numbers, Mehdi. You were quoting to me Hamas's numbers.
Because the entire UN and the human rights community and the American intelligence community on Friday said they trust those numbers. But you're dodging my question, Mark.
I'm not sure that's true.
Why did your military spokesman on Monday point to a calendar in Arabic and say these are the names of terrorists on them? That's false. Can you accept that here and now?
I'm not aware of the incident.
Let's put up the image. We have the image. You have no comment.
I don't read Arabic. It doesn't help me. I have no comment. I'm not familiar with the incident.
Does your spokesman read Arabic?
Hang on. I have a question, Maddie. You're a journalist. Have you made a professional mistake ever? Not intentionally, but have you made a professional mistake?
Bro, a professional mistake? Come on, dog. Like, come on, dude. Come on. A professional mistake? You spent the first 7 minutes of this conversation being like, all of the Hamas numbers are incorrect. They have to be incorrect. It's the fucking Gazan health ministry that's backed by Hamas. They're backed by Hamas. They're backed by Hamas. That's ridiculous. That's fucking ridiculous. How many professional mistakes can you make? The other question is like, this is Rantisi. What about Al-Shifa? It seems like every single time, even in instances where there's like more evidence that could potentially prove that you're correct, right? Like the Al Ahli hospital, okay? There's definitely a lack of evidence on the Palestinian side that should be questioned. I have questioned it already, time and time again. Okay? If you're honest about it, you have to recognize the impact crater looking inconsistent and not being as large as like a Mark 84 rocket, which is the most common guided munitions that Israel is using in Gaza. And the fact that there were no fragments that the Palestinian side could show. These are all important facts to mention. But Israel didn't just use those facts to call into question whether or not this was an Islamic Jihad rocket. Israel lied and brought forward incredibly inconsistent data that was disproven, even in the Al Ahli hospital. This is before we even get to the Al Shifa hospital. Okay?
Exactly, and I own up to it.
Have you made a mistake? So can
you own up to the mistake?
So if I've made mistakes, you've made mistakes, but there's a difference between making an honest mistake and between Hamas that deliberately exaggerates numbers.
That's crazy. You have no proof. You have no proof. As a matter of fact, not only do you have no proof that, like, the Palestinian Health Ministry, which he's now calling just Hamas, right? The Gazan Health Ministry. You have no proof whatsoever that they've ever given unreliable, unverified information. Okay? They're not going to get everything 100% correct. It's impossible to do so in the fucking middle of a war, especially when they don't have access to the same amenities that Israel does, right? But all points considered, okay? You have to look at their consistency. You have to look at the track record of the Gazan Health Ministry. These have been reliable numbers every single time. Who is he to say that the calendar thing wasn't a deliberate misleading characterization by the IDF? That's crazy. I know. What, do they not have a single fucking person that speaks Arabic? Get the fuck out of here.
To suit its propaganda purposes. There's a huge difference.
So it sounds like...
It's like...
So hold on. You said propaganda. Can we just deal with your colleague Ophir Gendelman's tweet? It's still up 7 days later. Why has it not come down? It's a Lebanese short film. We can put it on screen. It's not Palestinians faking their own injuries. Can we own up to that mistake and take that down? Is that not propaganda?
Once again, I understand that was also a mistake. And
so why is it still up 7 days later?
I'll speak to Ophir about it if you like. I'll speak to Ophir about it if you like. He's a friend of mine and a colleague. I quite like him. He's a good man. He's actually very effective. Why is he effective?
Well,
he speaks mother tongue level Arabic.
Mark.
I agree. He made a mistake. But let's be clear. It's very good that we have...
A mistake? Come on, brother. You know how many people told him he was wrong over and over again? Why is the tweet still up? It's up because it's not a mistake. They don't give a shit. You don't give a shit. It's all about a deluge of misinformation. It's all about enough racist people getting on board with this gross lie.
Someone who can speak Arabic in the Arab networks directly to Arab people so they can hear Israeli opinions directly.
Appreciate
and
that.
Is amazing at that.
Like, think about how critical people were of me when I talked about the Al Ahli bombing, right? The Al Ahli hospital bombing, when I had so much overwhelming circumstantial evidence that pointed to this being another Israeli bomb. If you were to exercise a little bit of critical thinking, you would immediately recognize that that person is deliberately lying. It's literally from a movie. You can tell there's a guy with a fucking violin in the fucking clip that he posted. There's a difference in the intentions here. Okay? It's ridiculous.
He's very important.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I know you're short on time.
Yeah, he's very effective at lying.
Much more short than me, so I'm going to keep going. Let's talk about war crimes. Human rights groups, as well as the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, have accused Hamas of committing war crimes. But they've also accused Israel of war crimes in Gaza, too, which you blame on Hamas. So I have a simple question for you. If Hamas gunmen were hiding out in a school in Tel Aviv or an apartment block in Haifa, would you be okay with the Israeli Air Force dropping bombs on those buildings, leveling them, killing the innocent Israelis inside in order to get the Hamas gunmen? Would you do that?
But you're right in your question. Of course, Hamas hides behind students and children. That's their whole policy. That's why we've had the casualties we've had. Hamas deliberately embeds itself, as you said in your question, amongst civilians. The fact that
okay, what about Israeli civilians? Would you do it?
They
great question.
buried themselves under the sheet.
I want him to say yes, we would, because I think that they would. For the record, I think that they would. They would kill Israeli civilians to get to the Hamas militants. Okay. They would. I'm sorry. They 100% would.
A hospital in Gaza City. Not one hospital, but a whole series of hospitals. They
Mark,
took
with respect,
over
you're not answering my question.
Turned them into military installations.
Would you bomb?
I am answering your question.
Would you bomb schools and houses in Israel if Hamas militants were believed to be under them and kill Israeli human shields in the process?
We don't deliberately kill anyone. That's not a fair question. What we are trying to do is eliminate this
Okay,
threat.
would you accidentally kill Israeli human shields? I'm asking you a very simple question.
We wouldn't want to accidentally kill anyone. We wouldn't accidentally, no, we wouldn't accidentally want to kill anyone.
Understood.
But can I tell you...
I mean, they have, for the record, they have. The hostages that they talked about earlier in this conversation died, most likely, by Israeli rocket fire.
In the West fought ISIS when
in Israel.
when the West fought ISIS in Fallujah and in Mosul, also there ISIS used human shields. They actually used a hospital, I believe, in Mosul. You probably know this as well as I do.
I do. And what
the
America
West
did was
was
wrong,
fought,
I think,
and the West was fought. But
wrong,
I think it's actually, I think America did the right thing. You had to defeat these brutal terrorists.
Would you apply the
but you're
tactics
saying
of
to
Gaza
me,
in Israel? It's a simple question.
we wouldn't allow them. We wouldn't allow them to take over a school in the first place. We'd send in special forces and we'd take out the terrorists.
I know you're over on.
Oh shit! What? You can't use the special forces here in fucking Gaza? Then what's going on?
I did answer your question. I did answer your question. Why did you say I did not answer your question? You didn't answer. I didn't answer it the way. I didn't answer it in the way you wanted me to answer it. That's the problem. I didn't answer it the way you wanted me to answer it. We would send in special forces and we would neutralize the terrorists. That's what we've done in the past. You know we've done it that way. Yes.
Last question for you. You've got ministers in your government. I have to ask this question. Amichai Eliyahu, who said Israel should consider dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza, which would kill over 2 million people. He's still in your government. Avi Dichter, another member of your government, went on TV and said this is Gaza Nakba 2023. And your boss, Benjamin Netanyahu, invoked Amalek, which was a biblical call for killing every man, woman and child. Mark, do you understand why that cannot be heard as anything other than calls for genocide or ethnic cleansing around the world?
So will you allow me to answer?
Of course.
Number one, that minister was reprimanded by the Prime Minister, Eliyahu, and he was told very forthrightly, he's suspended from the government, and if he makes any statements like that again, he's fired. On the Avi Dichter, I think I actually agree with what he said. The Nakba, the tragedy that was brought upon the Palestinians in 1947-48 was because of an extreme irresponsible leadership that wasn't willing to compromise. And Hamas is doing the same thing to Palestinians in Gaza. Terrible. And if they are creating a catastrophe, it's because of Hamas. And on the third point, Amalek was known in Jewish history, and I'm sure you know this, that they attacked from behind. They killed the women and the children and the people who were sick, who couldn't walk quickly. That's why Amalek is in the Bible, is so condemned, because they attacked the innocent. No, I know my, don't tell me I don't know my Jewish history. I know my Jewish.
He said the Nakba happened and it was good? Wait, no shot.
He's suspended from the government, and if he makes any statements like that again, he's fired. On the Avi Dichter, I think I actually agree with what he said. The Nakba, the tragedy that was brought upon the Palestinians in 1947-48 was because of an extreme irresponsible leadership that wasn't willing to compromise. And Hamas is doing the same thing to Palestinians in Gaza. Terrible. And if they are creating a catastrophe, it's because of Hamas.
Wait. Yo! He said, dude, this is the, okay, there's two different schools of thought in Israel. Okay? There's two different schools of thought. Is that the Nakba didn't happen, or if it did happen, it was really good that it happened. Sometimes you might even have a famous Israeli scholar go through both of those opinions throughout his career. Benny Morris. Anyway, the calculated, purposeful ethnic cleansing campaign and ethnic displacement campaign of Palestinians didn't happen, or it did happen. Well, I guess Benny Morris never said that it didn't happen, or it did happen and it was good.
And on the third point, Amalek was known in Jewish history, and I'm sure you know this, that they attacked from behind. They killed the women and the children and the people who were sick, who couldn't walk quickly. That's why.
How is that your takeaway from that statement? That's an unfair assessment. A calculated ethnic cleansing campaign, an ethnic displacement campaign that displaced 750,000 Palestinians happened because of the Palestinian leadership? What Palestinian leadership existed at the time other than, he's saying it's the same thing as what Hamas is doing. They're both a tragedy. No, you dumb fuck. He's saying that the Nakba happened, and it happened as a consequence of the Palestinian leadership refusing to negotiate with Israel at the time, which was not the case at all. He literally said it happened and it was a tragedy, but also it was a necessity. And now he's saying it's happening again because Hamas is doing the same thing. It was a tragedy, but it was a deserved tragedy. It was a tragedy born out of, Israel being a small bean genocidal state.
I'm a woman and known
Look.
in Jewish creating a catastrophe and been suspended from the government. If you allow me to
Other than calls for genocide or ethnic cleansing.
that very forthrightly, he's suspended from the government, and if he makes any statements like that again, he's fired. On the Avi Dichter, I think I actually agree with what he said. The Nakba, the tragedy that was brought upon the Palestinians in 1947-48 was because of an extreme irresponsible leadership that wasn't willing to compromise. And Hamas is doing the same thing to Palestinians.
I don't think he's saying the Israeli leadership was unwilling to compromise. I think he's saying the Palestinian leadership was unwilling to compromise and it happened, and that's what Hamas is doing now. Who's the guy who's talking
Statements
about?
like that again, he's fired. On the Avi Dichter, I think I actually agree with what he said. The Nakba, the tragedy that was brought.
Avi Dichter, is that his name? Is that the guy who said we're going to do a Nakba again? Oh, bro, what the fuck? We're rolling out Nakba 2023, Israeli minister says on northern Gaza Strip evacuation. Likud minister Avi Dichter says that war is impossible to wage when there are masses between the tanks and the soldiers. While Netanyahu does not support resettling the Gaza Strip, he says will not give up security control over it under any circumstances. There is Security Cabinet member and Agriculture Minister Avi Dichter, Likud party, by the way, far-right piece of shit, was asked in a news interview on Saturday whether the images of northern Gaza Strip residents evacuating south on IDF orders are comparable to images of the Nakba. He said, "We are now rolling out the Gaza Nakba. From an operational point of view, there is no way to wage a war, as the IDF seeks to do in Gaza, with masses between the tanks and the soldiers." When asked again whether this was the Gaza Nakba, Dichter, a member of the Security Cabinet and former Shin Bet director, said, "Gaza Nakba 2023. That's how it'll end." When later asked if this means Gaza City residents won't be allowed to return, he replied, "I don't know how it'll end up happening since Gaza City is 1/3 of the Strip, half the land's population, but 1/3 of the territory." Gaza Strip settlements were evacuated by Israel in 2005 during a unilateral decision, blah, blah, blah. I can say what else will not happen. There will not be a civil authority there that educates its children to hate the state of Israel, to kill Israelis, to eliminate the state of Israel. Yeah, nice. So yeah, he's saying, I agree with him, it was a leadership unwilling to compromise, and that's why the Nakba happened. Just like now, Hamas is the leadership unwilling to compromise with Israel, and that's why the Nakba is happening again.
Brought upon the Palestinians in 1947-48 was because of an extreme irresponsible leadership that wasn't willing to compromise. And Hamas is doing the same thing to Palestinians in Gaza. Terrible. And if they are creating a catastrophe, it's because of Hamas. And on the third point, Amalek was...
Yeah, there you go, dude. There you go. And then he follows up by talking about Amalek and how that's actually ethnic cleansing. Like he's a point about ethnic cleansing.
Known in Jewish history, and I'm sure you know this, that they attacked from behind. They killed the women and the children and the people who were sick, who couldn't walk quickly. That's why Amalek is in the Bible, is so condemned, because they attacked the innocent.
Correct you
here. No, I know my... Don't tell me I don't know my Jewish history. I know my Jewish history.
Go and attack the Amalekites. Do not spare them. Put to death men, women, and children. Is that what you're doing in Gaza? That's what the Prime Minister invoked.
No. He was describing, first of all, no one in Israel is calling for women and children to be killed on the contrary. How can you say
your heritage minister did. Really... He said nuke Gaza.
No. What we have said is we're going to wipe out Hamas, and we are going to wipe out Hamas. But we make a clear distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian civilians of the Gaza Strip, who are in many ways Hamas oppresses them. Hamas might want to kill Israelis, but the way Hamas treats the civilian population of Gaza...
Dude, it's sick. It's sick. It's like, you know... It's just, that's how they're doing it. They're saving the Palestinians actually by killing them, because guess what? When they die, they're technically no longer under the control of Hamas. So I mean, I guess it's like more favorable.
As I'm sure you yourself will admit that they deserve better than that terrible Hamas terrorist regime.
But on that note, we're out of time. Well, I'll give you one very straightforward last yes or no question for you. That Joe Biden wants a two-state solution in the Middle East. He wants it sooner rather than later, he says, to get peace in the Middle East. Does your government, does Prime Minister Netanyahu support a two-state solution? Yes or no?
I think it's a time now for war. It's a time for victory. And when that's over, with Hamas defeated, with Hamas destroyed, when you've taken out the most extreme enemy of peace, that'll create room, I think, for more moderate and pragmatic voices to fill the vacuum, and that'll be good for peace.
That's sick, man. Thanks. Yeah, that's a long way to say no, dog. All right.